Today we're going to look at an introduction to arrays. The objectives are, you will learn why we need arrays in a computer program, how to declare an array, how to use an array, and common errors involving arrays. Suppose a program processes grades for a course with 3 exams. We might have the following variables, and they'll be ints: exam 1, exam 2, exam 3. Okay, you already know how to do this. But what if you want to process 6 exam scores instead? Well, you'd have to add 3 more exam variables to your list. This gets a little bit cumbersome if you needed more and more exams, say 10 exams, maybe even 100 exams. And your application gets a little bit difficult to maintain since we must edit the code when changing the number of exams. Another approach is to use arrays. An array is a variable that stores a fixed number of values of a single type. That is, a list of variables. In other words, you have a structure that has more than one thing in it. And I'm drawing a box here just so you get that your array is a single structure with more than one item in it, kind of like a grocery list. The number of values stored in an array is known as the array length, and that is very key. Once you declare your array, the length of an array is fixed. A simple example is shown on the next slide. An example of declaring an array and determining the array length. So the first line of code here, int bracket bracket exams, is we're declaring the array. But you need to go a little further than that because you need to say in the second line that your variable exams is equal to new, the word new, the data type, in this case int, and the length inside of brackets. You're determining the length. And the next 2 slides provides additional details. The first statement, int bracket bracket exams, what you're doing is you're declaring an array variable that stores a list of your int values. And the brackets tells Java that we're having an array. At this point, we don't know the number of values stored in the array. The second statement, exams equals new int bracket bracket 6. The array is storing exactly 6 int values, and the keyword new instructs the runtime environment to allocate memory for 6 int values. The values stored in an array are known as array elements. And we need an index to refer to any of the array elements. And the initial element is referenced with 0. The last element is referenced with the number of elements minus 1. That is very key. An example of initializing the array elements defined in that first slide back there, well, slide 6. Exams bracket bracket 0 equals 90. Now, most people like to count starting with the number 1, but with Java, no. You start with 0. So your first subscript here is 0. Then you go exams bracket bracket 1 equals and set it equal to whatever the value is, and so on. And in this way, we populate our variable exams. And notice the last subscript here is bracket bracket 5, even though exams length is 6. And the example that we declared an array with 6 values, your index values other than 0 through 5 is going to generate an error. So each of the following statements is going to generate a runtime error. Exams negative 1 equals 15. You can't have a subscript that's a negative value. Exams bracket bracket 6 equals 100. That will give an error because the maximum subscript has to be the length minus 1. And of course, subscript 100 here doesn't even exist. That's way out of bounds. So these are things not to do. Here's some additional examples. Example 1, we're going to declare an array and assign the number of elements in the same statement. So you can do a declaration of array in a single line of code instead of 2 separate ones. Double bracket bracket AVE, and the double is the data type. You need the bracket brackets to tell Java it is an array. Equals new and the new tells we need a new object and allocating memory, and you have to declare the data type again in the same line. And inside the second set of brackets is where you put how many values you want to put into your array. Another way to declare arrays is to do it in two separate statements. And so your first statement is where you declare your array and the name, and then the second statement is where you allocate the memory for it, is shown in this example. Double bracket bracket nums equals new double bracket bracket 15. So 15 would be the maximum number of values you could put in that array. And we can use the following method to declare an array, but it is discouraged. This is where you have your data type, your name, and then the bracket brackets right after the name. That is just discouraged. Most of the time it's preferred to place the brackets before the array name, as shown in this second example. Int bracket bracket n equals new int bracket bracket 12. So don't do this way. We can initialize the values stored in an array in the same statement that declares the array. And this is useful for arrays that are small. And when we do this, it's called explicit initialization. So this is an example of that. Int bracket bracket scores, that's the name of your array. It's going to contain ints. And in curly braces, delimited by commas, we put the values that we want stored in the array. Explicit initialization. In this case, the scores array has 5 elements. Every Java array has a property called length, and here's an example. So we declare an array here, int bracket bracket list equals new int bracket bracket 10, and if we have a system.out.println statement with the words num elements in the list equals, and then the concatenator, and this is key here, list.length, the output will be the words num elements in list equals, and that list.length will be 10. The following example shows how to assign a value to the initial and last elements of the array from the previous slide. We'd have list bracket bracket 0 equals 50, and then list bracket bracket list.length minus 1 equals 23. What will be in the other subscripts? Well, Java is kind of nice. If you declare an array of int or double, it'll automatically initialize all of the array values to 0. You get that for free no matter what, even if you don't want it. And programming is like writing a book, except if you miss out a single comma on page 126, the whole thing makes no damn sense. Note that the length parenthesis is a method for a string object, while length is a property for an array. So this is two different things here. So here's an example with both. Suppose you declared a string named str, which has the word house in it, and then here on the second line of code, char bracket bracket word equals new char bracket bracket 45. So this is an array named word which contains character data type. So if we have a couple system.out.printlns, check this out. The first println statement, it's going to print the words length of the string is concatenator string.length parenthesis, and then the second println will print the words length of the array is concatenator the name of our array word.length. Notice there's no parenthesis after that. So what will get printed? Well, not any ducks, that's for sure. Okay, or in this example, the first println will print out the number of elements in the string, which is 5, and the length of the array is 45. So what would go to the output string would be the string.length would print out 5, and the word.length will print out 45.